Welcome everyone to Zirconium Part 4. So I'm finally spraying the frame after 2 weeks of pretty much 12-hour days of completely reshaping the metal, going from very heavy grinding attachments up to very fine, and then 1200 grit sandpaper in the end, putting water on the surface to try to find any minor surface deviation that was left. And then even after I started the special effect twice, the first layer being black base coat, while it was wet, it showed up any problems very easily. I still had to go back twice with more layers of primer and more sanding because there was still like a 0.2 surface deviation in a couple of areas. But you can see now, even with the very high reflectivity of the chrome, that it's very smooth. I'm really happy with it. Certainly a lot of time went in. Now, if I had have made a mistake here, not only would I lose all of that paint, which is extremely expensive, but all of the time that I've put into it would be gone because I can't just use paint stripper on this paint. It's too high end, too high quality for that. Like paint stripper pretty much does almost nothing to DNA paints. Also with the amount of layers here. But, you know, so that would have meant completely grinding the surface again. So back to step one, doing it all again. But I don't like to focus on doubt when I'm doing something like this. And I guess I've done it enough times where it's just in the muscle memory. But I can tell you the next layers, the final layers, were very stressful, and because of that I didn't even film it because I just wanted to concentrate. Because initially when I did the samples they ended up too dark, and normally when I use candy I use it on its own, and you kind of have to do a lot of layers when you use it on its own because it starts out a little bit patchy and you have to keep going over it to remove the patchiness, and by that time it gets a bit too dark. So I actually mixed the candy concentrate with the clear coat, but that means the clear coat has to go on super evenly. And clear, it flows a little bit and ends up just very slightly thicker in certain places. So anything like that would have meant a lot of variation from light to dark. And also the candy really thinned out the clear a lot more than I was used to. So it was quite difficult, but I can tell you that it did work out pretty well. And yeah, I'm certainly happy with it for the amount of time that I've put in, because this is a very important part of the build of the mod. It's part of the color scheme. It's going to be a blue chrome, the Zirconium theme. But my main inspiration for this was actually the T1000 from Terminator 2. So in the last part of the build log, I just showed all of the modding, but no real results. And that's just how it worked out with the timeline. Throughout that period of time leading up to that video, all I was doing was just starting all of the mods. But now all of them are starting to be completed. Certainly the bulk of it is done at this point. So this is the alloy parts that I was polishing, along with M.2 heatsinks and memory heatsinks, which are all going to go off to be 24 karat gold plated. So it was extremely important as well for the alloy that it was very smooth, just like the frame, because the plating is also going to show up any surface deviation. You can see that we have some real zirconium here, the metal and the crystals, and you can see where the color scheme comes from. The customer gave me these as inspiration for the build, and it was apparently very difficult to ship. He had to carry them with him because zirconium is used in nuclear reactors around the fuel rods. But you can see how well the colors have worked out with the 24 karat gold and then the blue chrome on the frame, and then the kind of silver of the metal coming into it with the chrome as well. And then on the outer tempered glass, we're also going to give it a very slight gold tint. Not too over the top, because you could imagine how things could go very wrong there with a super bright gold. But yeah, something quite subtle, so that from some angles it looks still silver, and then from some angles just a very slight gold. The reason I'm not installing the CPU water block or mono block at this point is because we're going to be designing a custom water block for this motherboard, for the CPU and power delivery and the memory. It's going to be a multi-layered, probably 3 layers for the water block, so that it can get into the memory, to the CPU and to the power delivery, all in the one block from the 2 connections on the manifold. Now, I was actually unable to install the EK M.2 heatsinks without some mods. They wouldn't fit side by side this close together, which the Asus Hyper M.2 cards require. So I had to modify the lower panel on the M.2s because it has the heatsink that fits on the top, but it also has a reinforcing panel on the bottom. So it's interesting how the special effect turned out. Really exactly what we were after, and surprisingly even on the candy, considering that it's mixed with the clear. It's actually, from certain angles, very slightly dark on the edges, which kind of gives the frame this kind of definition, which I think really works. I just wanted to thank DNA for their extra help on this. I've had a lot of experience with their paints, but it was great to be able to just call them to get further little details. I just told them, look, I want it to look like the T-1000 from Terminator 2. And they were just like, yep, I know the one, and this is what you need to do. And it was great that they helped me out. I don't get anything from DNA, and I pay full retail for their paint. It's very expensive, but it's certainly worth it. So this is prototype 1 for the manifold, and there won't be another prototype because we've pretty much got everything perfect on this. But I'm going to be talking all about this in the next part of the build log and doing a fluid test.